Shermans Showcase was one of the most original TV programs from the past year. It satirizes various Black-centered variety shows through the idea of a long-running program that is showcasing its best programming from the past 40 years. The show is the brainchild of Bashir Salahuddin and Diallo Riddle, who also both star in the show, and they join us here today. I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby. And the first question I want to ask to you, Bashir, is how did you come up with the format of how you were going to present this fictitious program?
Well, to some degree, it's, first off, it's good to be here. It's kind of the result of the collective amount of years that Diallo and I have been working in sketch comedy. We started out in like 04, 05 with a sketch comedy troupe that featured folks who are still working today, really great, funny comedy minds. I won't go through all the names. And then we ended up doing our own web series that, actually had one of the first viral hits on YouTube. And then we ended up working for David Allen Greer. And, we ended up spending 4 years at Jimmy Fallon, working for Late Night with Jimmy Fallon and doing some of his bigger hits, and also just learning so much from everybody at 30 Rock. This really is like almost like going to college. I say all that to say that for years, Diallo and I have felt like we owed a sketch comedy show because we got into the business originally doing sketch comedy. And so we were like, we want to do a sketch comedy show. So to some degree, the format you see was actually one that, through our experience, allowed us to do the most different and various types of sketch comedy that we could. So as you watch the show, we can do songs, we do original songs, we do great, fun, sketchy interview segments, we do like movie parodies, we do actual performances, we do all these different things because the rubric of a variety show allows us. Specifically, and Diallo, you can probably talk about this more than I can, the reason we picked the variety show is because for years we've been obsessed with them. They don't really happen anymore. But at one point in American history, everybody had a variety show. Like, you kind of had to have your own variety show. Like, this is like late 60s, early 70s. There were dozens and dozens of them.
Sammy Davis Jr. show.
Mm-hmm. And we were watching Soul Train, and believe it or not, Don Cornelius actually, Soul Train was much more than a dance show when it was in its heyday. A lot of people don't realize it, but he was doing like, Don Cornelius and Marvin Gaye playing horse. Or he was doing like really like in-depth interviews with like tough. So it was like this really cool thing where we're like, there's all these great variety shows that allow you to do different types of sketch comedy. And then specifically, Diallo was also obsessed with things like, Burt Sugarman's Midnight Special, which is like this really cool like music show that used to come on super late at night. That it was way before our time, but I think Diallo, did you buy the DVDs? I think or something.
I bought the DVDs because it was the 2000s. I bought the DVDs. And you could see everybody from Blondie to George Carlin with this theater in the round. You could see it, like looking at the crowd was half the entertainment, just to see how different people looked and how they dressed, and just the vibe was totally different and chill, man. So that was a really cool. And we were like, and we've been trying to do a show like this for a really long time, but again, we were at Jimmy Fallon. We came off stage one night. Because we had performed on an episode where we had been singing silly songs and the crowd loved it, and working with the Roots was fun. We were just like, let's see if we can do a show where we can do this all the time. Yeah. And then IFC, they bought the idea in the room. They were like, we don't know about all the time, but how about 8 episodes? And we were like, okay, that's fine. That works.
One of the other things that I loved about the show is that, there are a number of references to various other programs, like Soul Train, American Bandstand, and Solid Gold. Part of me was also just thinking, I might not get some of the references, but I will say the old Frederick Douglass commercials for Afro Sheen, I got that. And
I'm so happy you did. I'm so happy you got that.
when that became like a reoccurring gag throughout the episodes, I always lost it. And I'm curious, were there any other references that were included in an episode that you were particularly?
Gosh, that's a good question. Like direct references to Soul Train. What's funny is that at one point we thought we were going to do a lot of Soul Train references, and as time went on, we realized there was so much we wanted to say and do that almost all of them fell away. We were going to have our own version of the letter shuffle board, like we had to figure out that the word is, like peace, like not that hard, you guys. But over time, yeah, like I said, I think the Frederick Douglass thing might have been the only direct because there's so many dance shows. Like I just discovered one from Detroit just recently, and I sent a clip of it to Bashir, and I was like, dude, we have to do something like this. Like the host of that show is high as a kite when he's introducing the next act, and I was just like, I kind of want to see Sherman do something like this. Like it's bananas, and Bashir will tell you, like I feel like our host Sherman, as he plays him, is part Don Cornelius, but he's also lots of parts Krusty the Clown. You know,
Yeah,
like
he's a lot of Krusty.
Yeah, there's a lot of Krusty, and just like Krusty, he's usually on the wrong side of history. So when Krusty is like, "You kids, we invaded the Falklands," like, you know, he's going crazy over that. You know, I feel like Sherman is kind of on that level.
Yeah, totally. And I also was gonna say, like, it's funny because we were talking about this, you know, Charles, before we started talking about how there used to be this regionality in entertainment, right? So I'm from Chicago, so we used to have like house music. Like I grew up thinking house music, everybody danced to house music. And then once I went to college and went, you know, to the East Coast, and I was like, oh, you guys barely even know what this is, right? The kids from Detroit had their techno. The kids from DC, we were talking about that, had the go-go music, which we saw in is it Do the Right? I'm sorry, what is it? School Days, pardon me. So we talked about that in School Days. So, but it also extended, the regionality also extended to programming because, you know, there was a dance show in Atlanta that was called like Sheldon's or Sherman Showcase.
Yeah.
In Chicago, we had this thing called Steppin' on 7 where people would do steppin', and it would be like this super Chicago dancing that only came on Channel 7 Saturdays at like 2 in the morning, and yet we all watched it. And even that the show that Diallo just sent, the Detroit Dance Show, like that kind of stuff used to permeate all over the country, and it was kind of cool because everybody was working in their own silo, and they were kind of like developing their own vibe, developing their own specificity, developing their own sound. And since when you would hear it, you would hear this really richly detailed, really unique thing. And I do think that like it's really cool nowadays that everybody sees everything. But one of the things about Sherman is that it's kind of nice is like there's a throwback element to that regionality, to that ability to have something that nobody else knows about, that you're kind of, you know, because back in the day, it used to be that when you went on like the Ed Sullivan Show, or honestly, even like the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson or whatever, you were sort of introducing this new thing to a bunch of new people and hoping that it worked and being like, all right, guys, ladies and gentlemen, they're called the Beatles. They're from England. Like, I don't know what this stuff is. I guess the kids like it. And obviously nowadays, it's like I think, Diallo, you were saying nothing can be kind of under the rug now for more than 2 months before the internet really finds out about it.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's still regional music, like, you know, as recently as the drill music that was coming out of Chicago.
That's right.
You know, there's actually sort of like the
I'll call it
the post pop smoke,
yeah,
New York sound that's out there.
True.
But I will say that one of the best things about Sherman Showcase is that we got to work with some of our favorite musicians. You brought up the Go-Go song, Charles, and that song was produced by Fonte Coleman of the group Little Brother. I don't know if you know that rap group, but like very, very cool 2003, 2004-ish rap group. And he's been producing a lot of music since then. And he's from North Carolina. And it's kind of cool because, you know, he made that track out of love. I think all the music that we do at Sherman Showcase, we're working in all these different genres of Black music. But at the end of the day, we love all these genres. We're not making fun of any of this music. We actually like the Atlanta trap and the James Brown era soul and the Chicago house music. So everything that we do, even the Jamaican dance hall with our terrible patois, you know, it all comes from a place of love. I gotta say this fun fact because I only found this out yesterday. I know Chris Hardwick of Talking Walking Dead and Chris Hardwick, and just found out he is the announcer on the Little Brother album, The Minstrel Show, because apparently he met Fonte through a mutual friend a long time ago. So that blew my mind. Like my worlds collided. Fonte, Chris Hardwick, who knew those guys knew each other?
Well, that actually brings up my next question. When you were talking about, I'm from the DC area, and I love that you put in a go-go number in there, which is for those who don't know, is a style of music that has come about in the nation's capital.
Shout out to Chuck Brown.
Godfather go-go, baby, Chuck Brown. Wind me up, Chuck, baby. What led you to want to include that style of music, particular, that is still foreign to so many people?
let me just jump in there and say again. I think that even as we go into season 2, there's some genre of music that we haven't tackled yet, and so we just, in a weird way, like we really wanted to do a go-go song, and I think it was Bashir who was actually like, "Yo, I got an idea for a go-go song about colleges," and so we workshopped it in the room and came up with this lyric that was about the black kids at the white school, and some of the ideas come in fully formed, some of our song ideas, and some of them literally we're down on deadline. We're like, we got to come up with a topic for this song, and every song comes together differently. But with that one, we just like go-go music. I'm from Atlanta, Bashir's from Chicago, but we have friends from the DMV, and that's always been a very. I mean, think about the DMV just for a second. You've got DC's got its go-go music, Baltimore's got its be more club music. Like the two genres could not be any different, and apparently once you're in one city you cannot listen to the other cities, like it's just not heard of. And then I think Virginia's just down there doing southern hip-hop. Go ahead.
But it's also the thing about Virginia, and I'm only saying this, and I'm going to speak about this like I know what I'm talking about, but it's really because I literally just saw a documentary. But the thing about Virginia that's so badass is that they really had this, you know what it was? It was like Teddy Riley, actually, who's from New York, went down there and he found so many incredible musicians down there. He sort of acted as an accelerant to the Virginia area, because he was somebody who then put on your Pharrell Williams, who eventually then put on your Timberlands, your Missies, et cetera, et cetera. So what's cool about the Virginia area is they already had all this talent down there. Yeah. But once you had somebody like Teddy who was like, wait a second, there's all this great talent out here, people don't know about it. And he was able to really help get a lot of those names out there. So, but it's kind of cool because we got to benefit as music lovers. And I think the sort of answer to your real question is we're music lovers. Diallo still DJs huge parties. I listen to music pretty much all day, every day. We love all this stuff. So we had already been loving go-go. There's so many other genres that we love. I'm talking about regionality. In one of our other shows, we were talking about maybe doing something with UK grime, which, a lot of people.
Which will be a lot of fun.
It'll be a lot of fun. But it's just that, ultimately we just love all this stuff. We love all this music, and we really challenge ourselves to work with musicians who love it and who can recreate similarly sounding styles of music that sound authentic. And Fonte is one of them. The Knox are another group that we work with who does really, really great stuff. They did Marina Del Rey and some other great tracks for us. So, Diallo and I just really work really hard to make sure that when it's time to make a song for Sherman Showcase, that the person who's actually doing the songwriting is a badass musician who loves it and is going to make something that's a love letter and not comics. For many years, music and comedy was the comedians kind of knew about it, but you hear the tracks, they would not be anything you'd play in the club. And we always talk about how we think The Lonely Island actually did a really good job of kind of changing the game, because they would put out Lazy Sunday or Dick in the Box, but those were also bangers independent of the fact
I'm
that
on a boat. I'm on a boat was a legitimate club classic. So there you go.
Not to mention, I just had sex as well.
Yes.
The performances are so great on Sherman's Showcase, but it's only, and I think it's the easiest thing to highlight, but there's still all these other aspects. And one of the things that I really loved in watching the first season was you saw all these little, especially in those first 2 episodes, I think you see all these little hints of all the other stuff that Sherman has done with his career, especially in movies. You get all these little seeds, and then in later episodes, you'll see the actual trailers to these movies, and they're absolutely ridiculous. I'm so curious as to how you came up with strategically placing these things early on, and then delivering on them later on in the season.
We probably shot, we had 8 episodes. We probably shot 10 episodes worth of stuff, and so. Even though we went into the process of filming the series with the scripts in hand, once we were in the editing bay, we were like, wouldn't it be great to have a scene from, what is it called? White Bandits, Black Guns?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great to see just a snippet of it and then have the whole thing come fully realized in episode 7? Because we'd always wanted to do something that looked like a spaghetti Western. Our incredibly, insanely talented director, Matt Piedmont, knows how to shoot on a set in Glendale and have it look like, classic Sergio Leone style, Western. And I think that was, it was a lovely. It wasn't an accident, but it was a lovely thing that came out of the editing process to say, hey, why don't we put this here and only have it pay off, later.
But also, we're big fans of lore. I mean, I know this is going to shock you, but Diallo and I are kind of like nerds. And, we like all that stuff, all that nerd stuff that people would name as the sort of nerd canon are things that we love. And we love them specifically an individual, the way that real fans do. And I certainly don't mean to besmirch nerds by suggesting that the things that they love are things that only they can love. I think everybody loves some of this stuff. I say all that to say that we love how stuff is layered. We love creating lore. We love a deeply realized world. We love the idea that we're going to have this TV show that, again, and I think this comes from our experiences doing sketch comedy, it's going to look on its face like just a variety show that we're kind of spoofing. But as you dig deeper, you realize that, no, it's much more, it's so many more layers than that. And that we put not even just in terms of the content, but even in the aesthetic, presentation, we try to put jokes in front of the camera. What's interesting nowadays, because I watch old episodes of Shermans, I literally spend more time watching like the extras and the dancers who we all cast and like the people who are not talking in the sketches, because we've been so blessed to have such talent that like even in our game show sketches, like Diallo, I was just watching like Get Your Boy, the faces that Tiffany, who's one of the dancers and is also an actor, the faces that she's making during that sketch are like laugh out loud funny because she's actually in real time living the id of the weirdness that my character is hosting the show is saying. So if you watch her face, it's like she's going through all these emotions, like what the fuck is this guy talking about? And it's really, but I love it that we have like asked all these really talented people who can dance, who can act, who can make music to all come be part of this big tent with us and help us like create this really richly detailed world where whether you're talking about what the characters are saying or even about what's on the screen, there's all this layers and tons of Easter eggs. And for us, we just feel like really excited that we have this big toy box that has hopefully something for everybody.
Yeah, we liked Tenacious D back when we were roommates living together. And I feel like that degree of like trying to, do a song about Dungeons and Dragons, like that, there's always going to be that part of us that wants to do that kind of stuff. Is they're just going to have a ridiculously banging beat. So there you go.
Yeah.
The reception to this show has also been so insanely positive, and I'm wondering if there's been any aspect of the reception to the show that has surprised you.
I'm happy people got it. I'm happy that people like I like it when people come up and they say things like you brought up the go-go music, right? And then other people like Questlove hit me up after he saw the first episode and he noticed that my character had stopped working on Shermans Showcase for 2 years, specifically 1979, 1980. He's like, yo, is that the most subtle Lorne Michaels reference that I've ever seen on TV? And I was like, it is, Quest. Absolutely it is. Like, people have asked us in Q&As, like, why doesn't Sherman age? And what is it? Like, I feel like that's the best thing about the show. Like Bashir was saying, that we can do something that's incredibly layered to the degree in which, like, one of our friends is convinced, he's like, man, you did that joke for 5 people living, But yeah, maybe we did because we had, leeway. Shout out to AMC and IFC for never really forcing us to do anything too broad. Are we surprised by the reception? I mean, like, it's so hard to get a show on the air. I mean, like, I think that by the time you get something on the air, you love it. So the fact that, I don't know if surprise is the word, but we're very happy. We're very, happy that people enjoyed season 1 and this Black History Month spectacular that we just did. We're happy that we put our heart and soul into something and that they appreciated it.
Bashir, Diallo, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best this Emmy season. And to all our viewers, please like this video, subscribe to our channel to get all our latest content, and don't forget to go to goldderby.com and use the Gold Derby app to make your predictions and see if you can outsmart the top prognosticators in Hollywood. Thanks so much, guys.
I'm going to do that.
Thank you, Charles.
Take care.